Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored again to address members of the Security Council today, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Chair for his visit to Mogadishu last month, in which he has witnessed firsthand the progress on the ground. I also want to thank the Chair for his briefings. Mr. President, my purpose today is threefold. First, to present my government's consideration on the threat to peace, security, and stability in my country. Secondly, to provide an update on the important work my government is undertaking to address these threats. Lastly, I would like to update the Council on our engagement with the panel of experts on Somalia. In terms of existing and emerging threats to Somalia, Al-Shabaab continues to pose the biggest threat to Somalia and to the region. They continue to retain the capacity and the network to infiltrate SVPIDs and VPIDs into the capital, which is seen in recent security incidents in our capital, such as the December 28, 2019 attack on the vicinity of ex-control Afgoye Junction, and the IEDs at the checkpoint at Makkah al-Mukarramah Road in the city of Mogadishu on January 8 of 2020. At the same time, the terrorist groups continue to influence some parts of Somalia through its extensive extortion and intimidation techniques and propaganda. Mr. President, the federal government of Somalia remains strongly committed to the implementation of the transition plan underpinned by the notion of comprehensive approach to security. The federal government of Somalia recognizes that mutually reinforcing efforts on the reform front in the security sector, coupled with effective military operations and delivery of stabilization initiatives, are prerequisites for consolidating success in the transition plan. Operation Badbaado in Lower Shabelle has been the central focus by the FGS after successful military operations, where joint military operations result in several strategic areas recovered by the Somali National Army and AMISOM. Since February 2019, a total of 9,704 Somali National Armed Forces have been generated, of which 1,023 under the Brigade October 14 were directly involved in the recovered areas in Lower Shabelle, namely As-Sabib, Anole, Audegle, and Berire. Thus far, 2,000 militias have been integrated into Galmudug forces and 374 in Hirshabelle forces, based on the politically negotiated Hirshabelle and Galmudug framework. In addition, the reintegration effort by the federal government of Somalia has resulted in the reintegration of the 1st Battalion of 550 soldiers from existing Somali National Army units. This sustained offensive against the Al-Shabaab terrorists illustrates the increasing capability of Somali security force, and given the right conditions, are capable of effectively implementing the transition plan and delivering security and justice. Mr. President, the federal government of Somalia has made substantial progress in building the institutional capacity of Somali National Security Force in order to deliver the rule of law, access to justice, improve the quality and delivery of governance. In 2019, key benchmarks met by the Somali National Army, overseen by the Minister of Defense, include completing the biometric registration of its force, the development of financial management and procurement guidelines for the Somali National Armed Forces, the creation of efficient and effective systems in managing rations, as well as reviewing key positions such as personnel, logistics, and finance. Logistical support to the SNF by UNSOS was also streamlined. The Somali police force have also equally illustrated its potential by supporting military operations and consolidating gains made in recovered areas. The first 100 Darawish police officers have been deployed in Lower Shabelle to support holding the liberated areas and assisting with humanitarian deliveries, allowing the SNF to move further afield with their operations. The FGS intends to accelerate force generation efforts for holding recovered areas with a view of creating a conducive environment for stabilization activities and implementation of the rule of law. On 30th December of 2019, 385 new police recruits from Southwest State graduated and are to be deployed to Lower Shabelle following the new police model agreed by the federal government of Somalia and federal member states in 2016. On February 13, 2020, a further 300 Darawish cadets are at General Kahia Academy, Police Academy, graduated and ready for deployment. The federal government of Somalia's objective is to generate 1,750 police Darawish for deployment in 2020. In 2019 alone, the Somali police force generated a total of 3,212 new police officers. In addition to the ongoing operational and institutional capacity building activities, the federal government of Somalia has continued with non-operational effort to create conditions required for strengthening local governance, reconciliation, rule of law, among other stabilization efforts. To support the coordination of stabilization activities in the newly liberated areas as part of the Lower Shabelle military operations, an interministerial task was formed consisting of the Ministry of Interior, Ministers of Federal Affairs and Reconciliation, Minister of Defense, Minister of Justice and Judiciary Affairs, Minister of Internal Security, and Minister of Health, Minister of Information, and Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, has focused on need to ensure coherent and conditions-based approach to stabilization activities. While implementation of the transition plan is underway, the existence of armed elements that are not yet part of the federal or the state force presents a risk of stability. Integration efforts are underway to incorporate militia groups into forces as set out in the transition plan. However, integrated militia forces require vast financial resources, equipment, training, and other efforts such as demobilization of non-active persons as well as the civilian reintegration efforts. The federal government of Somalia continues to strengthen weapons and ammunition management for Somali security forces. FGS has improved its storage capacities and saw consistent implementation of marking and registration of weapons as well as efforts to capture data on weapons distributed. Mr. President, with regard to the panel of experts on Somalia, our aim is to begin and maintain a constructive working relationship and to cooperate on researching on how to address the security threats in terms of terrorism financing, illegal weapons of flow, illegal charcoal trade in Somalia, while help understand further Al-Shabaab's use of IEDs. The federal government of Somalia have had a number of meetings with the panelist coordinator in the last few months with a view of resetting relationships. However, we have not agreed on the way forward as our priorities remain unaligned and our concerns continue unexamined. As you are aware, the panel or the monitoring group in the previous mandate made unsubstantiated allegations against certain individuals within and outside the government. Such allegations have damaged relations and caused significant reputational damage. We're aware that the best practice in monitoring the UN arms embargo reporting is use evidence-based reporting with a reasonable standard of proof, but it has not been followed in recent incidents. Therefore, we request once again a reliable mechanism is established to redress cases where allegations are wrongly made. The Council must also ensure that all efforts are made in a timely manner to ensure full investigation in cases of misconduct by the panel of experts in line with the rules and regulations of the United Nations. The FGS is confident that all efforts will be undertaken to strengthen and improve accountability and responsibility of the conduct-related matters, including a thorough application of policy practice guidance and enhancement of investigation capacities. We trust that these efforts will continue to improve awareness and to promptly investigate and address violations so that accountability is ensured in the cases of sustained misconduct. Thus, full cooperation between the host country and the panel of experts is achieved. In conclusion, Somalia continues to face multidimensional challenge with competing priorities. The FGS is concurrently engaged in counterinsurgency and building strong and stable institutions in line with the national security architecture and the Somali transition plan. Resource gaps and logistical flexibility remain key challenge in adopting changing operational strategies by insurgents. Strengthening intelligence sharing mechanism and joint planning is priority for the FGS in pivotal and joint operations to further recover the remaining areas under the Al-Shabaab control. In this regard, the federal government of Somalia requests the continued support of international community in above-mentioned areas to counter the threats of Al-Shabaab effectively and bring the lasting peace and stability to Somalia as well as the region. However, the sanctions continue to be imposed on Somalia without proper assessment of its effectiveness. Therefore, we once again go on record to seek the full lifting of arms embargo on Somalia, which has no time limit or clearly defined or verifiable benchmarks. And lastly, my government sees the important issues being discussed today and ask for your continued constructive working relationship moving forward. Mr. President, Excellencies, and ladies and gentlemen, I just received, upon instruction from my government, I would like to bring a report to you, an urgent matter which poses a serious threat to our peace and security. The federal government of Somalia has exhausted all diplomatic means for the government of Kenya to refrain from actions that pose threat to historical relations between the two nations and the long-lasting economic and security political cooperations between the two governments and its citizens. Somalia believes that our region can best succeed with more cooperation and less interference. However, Kenya continues to be a consistent destabilizing force in Somalia's offsetting and negating its engagement in African Union peacekeeping mission, AMISOM. Kenya's brash interference in Somalia's domestic affairs is blatant breach of Somalia's sovereignty, territorial integrity, political independence, and unity. Furthermore, Kenya's continuous encroachment in the Somali's border areas outrightly undermines our stability and sovereignty. On our hard-earned progress with the help of the international community is today jeopardized by the negative anti-peace actions carried on by the Kenyan government. These destabilizing actions not only negatively impact Somalia, but they are antithesis to the objective of regional and global peace and clear violation of United Nations Article 2, Paragraph 4. Quote, all members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or the use of force against territorial integrity or political independence of any state or any other manner inconsistent with the purpose of United Nations, unquote. The federal government of Somalia strongly condemns these blatant violations and reaffirms that it will take all necessary measures proceeding from its responsibility to defend the inviolability and sovereignty and the unity of the Somalia in accordance with our constitution as well as international law and covenants. The Kenyan government continues its destabilizing actions against our nation despite our multiple protests. If these aforementioned actions do not immediately cease, we will invoke United Nations Charter Article 35 and we will bring our case against Kenya's breach of Somali sovereignty, political independence, unity and territorial integrity to the United Nations Security Council. I thank you, Mr. President.